Hey folks, it's Rob Potter here from The Promise Revealed. It's actually called The Promise Revealed UAT. And guess what? We're changing it again to thepromiserevealed.net because UAT is hard for some people to understand. Today we have another great show with a guy named Dave Wallace. We're going to get into that. But I thought I would share with you. My summer conference is up right now. So I think I got this somewhat easy on my desktop, and I'm going to show you. We're going to go to the summer conference right here. I'm just going to show you. It's on my website, and when you get to the first homepage of my website, you're going to go here, and here's the summer conference. We've been working hard on this for a couple of weeks. All the information. What an amazing lineup! Time traveler from Venus, 2.5 months. Laura Eisenhower, of course. Alex Collier, one of the first people to reveal the kind of hostile agenda of the bad guys. Vivian Chavez, myself, and we have Dave Wallace with us today. Sarah Adams, Loa Johnson walked into the Mount Shasta Telos 2 years ago, or a year and almost a half now. I was the first person to interview him the first time he talked. Amazing interdimensional traveler. Suzanne Ross, Frank Chile, an old friend of mine, Maureen St. Germain, Neil Gar, a portal to ascension, Becca B., a new girl, amazing healer, of course, Brooks Agnew, Willard Van de Bogart, interesting sound guy, wrote a book called Alien Child, Jane Marstello, an incredible astrologist, Jamie Liu and Seth Hargett will be presenting together this year in terms of sound and sacred geometry. Another newcomer, Savannah Slauson, a beautiful heart-based girl, Sam Kiwas on sacred geometry, Isaac Mars, another new gentleman, younger guy, written a book called The Theory of Everything, kind of a lot of stuff there you can read in his biography. Apollo Asteria, a beautiful young girl, one of the, like a little muse type gal, a beautiful energy involved in music, art, and lots of stuff. Dennis Adams, the local healer here. I'm going to call a Spock-like character named Arcturus Ra, definitely an interesting character. And with some good science technology information, Brad Olson and Eric Dademeyer. And I have a couple special guests I'm waiting to. So right now we're at 26 presenters here in Mount Shasta. That's where you book your tickets. Now, if you're an Inner Circle member, there's a discount there, and basic members get a little discount. And come down here, the vendor locations. I really want people to read this entire document and come back to it throughout the year. We may have a couple of posts here, but you have places to stay. Of course, the speakers' biographies, it's all here. We even have free ticket offerings in certain positions. You can see if you're, you want to be one of the free tickets. So all that stuff is in there. So I'm going to get off that and stop the commercial so much. But today, we're going to pick up where we left off with a guy that was referred to me by my friend, and he was explaining to me, like, okay, that's cool, and he goes, no, he's for real. I said, okay. I said, there's a lot of people for real. I mean, let's, and I finally we got to the point, and he mentioned it, and we got into exchanging, and then I met Dave at Nathan's house there in Los Angeles, and Dave had some amazing stuff here, and we're going to be able to actually share some amazing things today. I wasn't sure David's going to guide this where we're going to go, but he's given me a bunch of images, and we're going to go through these today. So let me give a little background, and you can go to my blog soon. I'm going to have this information up, but I asked the Venusians about Dave and his people, and they actually replied in talking about this group that Dave's in contact. And they said that they actually clarified some things in regards to where they're from and the distance and all that. Their planet actually was formerly a moon around the Aldebaran system. And something's changed. I mean, it's crazy, but the Venusians know about them. And I said, well, what do you think about them? And they said, as with most civilizations in the Taurus cloud sector, they're not in our quadrant. They're not allied with our local galactic confederation of light, but they maintain a neutral position. In other terms, when I asked them about semyasi, I'm going to be revealing a lot more of the questions that they've given me and I'm writing some comments around them in the orientation before and after the questions to give you some stuff. I'm working on my book now myself. So I'm trying to get the information and build this up here. So one of the things that they said was when I asked about Semyasi, and they said, yes, I know Semyasi. And as far as I have met her and I talked to her, as far as the protocols of contact of their representatives. And what she said by that, she's managing how the contacts are made to Earth-based starseeds that come from the Pleiades. And there's many races, and David comes from this particular race, I believe. Is that correct, David?
That's pretty damn bang on. Yeah.
Okay, so David, welcome David to the show, by the way. I wanted to just introduce him here, but some of you know him from our previous, this is part 2 of the interview. We'll probably have a part 3. He's got so much information, and we're going to be providing a lot of evidence today, especially for the skeptical people who are needing a little more evidence. David's contact is ongoing, constant, telepathic, as is Raymond's, and many other contactees have a direct telepathic link pretty much 24/7 on certain levels. So first, I guess let's do it. Welcome to the show, Dave. How's it going? Baking pies down there at Hermosa. What's the name of your place? Let's give them the location so you can be inundated with donut and coffee requests down at your shop in Hermosa.
It's not going to happen. We don't do donuts, and we don't do coffee. We just come for a pie and leave.
Oh,
and then have coffee back garden if you're a member of my inner circle.
Okay, he's got a back garden there. So where is it located? You want?
It's on Hermosa Ave in Hermosa Beach in Southern California. It's a great little stop. And if you want a pie without any artificial ingredients, then come on by. But let's not plug the pie shop.
I know.
Just so funny. You know, I actually had one of your subscribers come in from downtown LA. She found the pie shop and she was really excited. And
oh, cool.
I chat for about 20 minutes because I was really busy during the holidays. And I was finishing up about 30 pies, and I didn't have a lot of time to spend with her, but she was lovely. And it was nice after our last talk to go over some of the comments. Your audience of followers are very conscientious people, and they're caring enough to be able to say something without ruffling too many feathers. This is a lot to digest for anyone.
Yeah, especially people coming into the new understanding now, and there's so much confusion and chaos in the planet alone. Never before has the planet been under this type of stress.
Right. And boy, I'm telling you, the evil powers are trying so hard to turn the burners all the way up and to keep throwing stuff at us to destabilize us, to keep humanity from centering ourselves. Remember, it's very important to get your feet on the ground, get your head into the universe, and take a deep breath and connect. It's very important every day now that we should be making an effort to ground ourselves. There's so many things coming at us from the bad forces to keep you malaligned or upset or emotionally traumatized or chemically inundated, whether it's from spray in the sky or the food that we eat. They're constantly attacking us, even though they need us for tax revenue. They're really scrambling. And this is the point now where I've been trying to get everybody I know in the community together, and I know you have too, and I know that we've been receiving the same message of this urgency to get together and for us to come together and to bring people, because there's going to be a need in the future for sanctuaries, just like Laura Eisenhower just said today. I watched her show and she was amazing, and I could see the emotions, because Laura, she really wears her heart on her sleeve. So when she's hurt, you can see it. And she's a very dear heart, and she's hurting for humanity. One of the things that Kim Jim did to me when he realigned my neural network was that he took away the obvious pain centers, so that when I do see really traumatic things or I hear a lot of bad stuff, and I do pay attention to global politics and in the condition of our planet, I'm not as affected as I used to be, and it helps me keep clear thinking, and it helps me be a strong man, because it's really important for us to die for the truth. It's really important for us to protect the redwoods and protect all the animals in the watersheds. It's really important for us to protect our children so that they're not being fed chemicals. And in fact, I made a T-shirt today, and I was going to send it to Stephen Greer.
Okay.
I don't know if you can read that, but it says, "Ascension is not a members only club."
Okay. Well, I think you're right. We do need to come together. And
Right.
unfortunately, David, I mentioned this, we want to let you know that all the contactees most generally are very positive and are trying to create a cohesive understanding of what's
Right.
going on. There's a lot of confusion out there, and the physical contactees like us who've had repeated face-to-face physical contacts, mine over 47 years, and David with a lot of regularity and actually more intimacy than all of my 47 years. He's having ongoing contacts. And I think that what we have to realize is that everyone has their own apperceptions. Each group of ETs has their own apperceptions, and they don't all run under the same agenda. They all have their
Correct.
own agendas. Their group, the individuals, and then the perceptions of the people involved.
Right.
If you're a pagan and
So
you're
if
getting
I could just interrupt,
contacted,
it's so highly individualistic and so highly interpersonal because we're all designed and set up differently electrochemically here, that every type of contact that they reach out to us is different. And it's interesting because you can be with a group of people who are sitting in a circle and you're doing like a summoning and trying to get a ship to come and say hello. And we may all see a ship, but interestingly, 4 or 5 or 6 people in the circle will all have a different experience of the same experience that we all had. So for some reason or somehow they're able to tailor the amount of information that they send to our hearts and to our minds into an individual level, because we can't all take the same message the same way. Otherwise, they too become a dictatorship. They want us to shepherd our own hearts. They want us to shepherd our own behavior, and then they'll continue to work with us. And it's interesting because I know that the contactees that I know are okay with me starting to release some of the photographs of extraterrestrials on board and pictures of L. Today we have a picture of L that we can show later.
we'll get into that in a minute. But basically,
but it's okay. I mean, people need to start seeing pictures. And the other thing is that this is part of my role as an ambassador, to prepare you mentally for the differenceness. There's a big difference. They're very different from us physically. And so there is a flight or fear response. And we have to start accelerating the role of getting our friends and other people that are contactees and other people who are interested in the new world and the new life to be calm and relaxed when they start to arrive. And so my role is to help people make this adjustment.
yeah, I'm not so sure how quickly that will accelerate. But I mean, like I said, I definitely feel that formally when contact is made, but who knows, that the Venusians, the Pleiadians, the one that look very much like us, or still in our genre, maybe taller, bigger, more muscular, slimmer, whatever. The new kind of different genus that this group is, as they said, they told me, Rob, I asked about reptilians on the moon, and Commander Rain goes, Rob, there's countless species that are on the backside of the moon.
Right, I'm sure.
It's an ambassadorial state, and as long as they abide by our rules, if they're found in any transgressions, they will be escorted to the Saturnian system for judgment.
I've heard the exact same thing.
So I think that's taking place in general now throughout the galaxy, as some people call it, the new guardianship, or
it is for sure.
New alliances are coming in. So depending on what our confederation, there may be multiple federations that with a certain numbers can push forward their ideas. The Venusians prefer to not have too much interference until, if we could open up, lovingly accept them, invite them in, and be ready with open hearts, they would really encourage us to develop that. But as far as they're concerned, we have to take responsibility for the planet. We have to end the wars. We have to have equitable distribution of resources, a truly representative government, which means a complete change. And that's another part of what I'm
Well, it's
working
happening.
on.
It's beginning because they are afraid of us. Now, the ones that are going through the porthole in South Antarctica to be taken away,
Yeah.
they're already on the way out. The dark entities and evil forces are currently being removed. If
Yeah.
it's not 70% done, I would be surprised. The people, the evil people are disappearing. The lady that worked with that pedophile, she's been arrested, and that's going to be mishandled. I can tell you, because her information is far reaching into U.S. government politics.
Yeah, let's go. I want to go back more into ET. So if we can go into those areas in future.
Get all those people out. They're all being pulled out.
Yeah,
Okay?
I definitely believe we're pretty much liberated. We just don't realize it yet. And there's
Right.
a series of
Right.
activities that are going to come forward in the future that will literally make all of this confusion go away. But really,
Right.
what we need to do, excuse me for adjusting my head there, but we have to, as a people, one heart at a time. We can't have these wars. People cannot be going to wars, picking up guns
Right.
in the streets or
Right.
going into violence against each other. I
No,
mean, you
it's
have a
not
right
us.
to defend yourself, but
Right.
hopefully we're going to achieve a level of peace. So I want to go back to where we were at in our last show. And before I do that, I'm going to say that I was going through a lot. I had some heavy astrological conditions. I did get a type of virus, and I'm going to share with you. David said, "Oh yeah, they did the healing on one of my people, and all this stuff." So I actually called him up and said, I was doing this, and maybe they could do something for me. And David, as soon as he thought about him, he was getting a telepathic communication from his contact, and they actually ended up coming to my house here. And I'm going to share with you guys a couple. I'm going to do a screen share here of what happened. I was pretty much completely out of it for almost 3 weeks. It was a biological weapon. I'm not going to call it the certificate of vaccination ID COVID because, as for those of you who follow me, you know that in Wuhan, China, they had the most 5G, and all the people that were coughing up blood and dying, that was the result of 5G. It was a virus. It was a front to create the scare, and they do have some nasty biological weapons, but you can always overcome it with natural immunity. Go to the hospital and get a mask and a respirator. It's going to be worse, and some bad things might happen. But it's basically a control situation, a depopulation program. We already know that. So I'm going to move back.
Very poorly. You were very ill.
Yeah, I was really bad. So what happened is I was pretty much delirious, and so David said, yeah, he said he's going to, I think we called him, and he said he's going to come back and he's come to your place in 15 minutes. And he said that, I want you to close your eyes. And I said, well, I don't mind seeing, I'm ready for the shock of another being. I was really out of it, but you can tell him what I said after the call. But one of the things they sent was this image to him. He's not a chemist. They basically gave him this. I still don't know what it is. If anyone's a chemist out there and you know how to make this formula, they said it would be a really good analgesic for me. So David telepathically received this communication, and he gave it to me maybe after I was healed. But I have since used other aspects of this of the communication. I'm going to share that with you now. And I'm going to share with you this one. They sent this one, and I don't know if you can see it, but his little picture he had, and I couldn't even read it. I can't even blow it up. So
I was writing. I was sitting in the bakery garden.
Yeah, put it up close to the camera and tell me what this is. Yeah.
I was sitting in the bakery garden, and you were really ill, and it was like, Rob, he's coming now. Take your clothes off, go to bed, and be quiet and keep your eyes shut. And so I scratched this out on a piece of cardboard, and it's CH2, CH2N, and then parentheses CH3, and then 2. It's a chemical compound. And
and the bottom line is it's an analgesic, right?
Well, this is what Kim Jim told me is psychically, because he's in your bedroom, and he said you have a blunt trauma damage to lower back, ilioinguinal compression, abdominal surgery for hernia likely cause, PCOS major damage due to inflammation. He said you needed something called amitriptyline, and he said that as soon as you get that, it would be able to kill the pain enough for your body to kick back in so that you could produce dopamine, because you really do have a severe pinched nerve in your lower spine.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
walk back. I'm going to show you some more stuff here real quick while he's talking. So you can pull up the little picture of the beings there too. We saw that one. I'm going to share a screen. You won't be able to see it. So this is what they said, my einhorn, and they notice how this looks like a butterfly. But this is the problem when people see me walking around with a cane and stuff.
okay, now this was really interesting. Just stop for a second. Okay, behind that, there you go. That's a graphium butterfly. All right, so we didn't have any in our garden, but when I was talking to Kim Jim, I saw thousands of these graphium butterfly fluttering around my head. And he said the silhouette of the butterfly is the region that is damaged. And so I started going through pictures of spinal cords, and I found the graphium butterfly silhouette. And then he went, that's the place. And so he says, tell Rob this is the chemical compound. It will directly affect the injury in that part of your spinal cord. And then it'll allow your body to take a break, and you'll feel better. And then your body will start producing dopamine again.
Amazing.
But
So I
it
don't
was
have,
hardcore, dude.
right. So what this was is I haven't, I'm going to give this to my chiropractor, but I did get the amitriptyline. That's an over the counter. And he talked about some other stuff in my physical body, not important here, but he did give this information. So this is I have to say, folks, and I'm going to go into, so afterwards, um, I said something, and I remember him calling me, but I was completely out of it. They put me out for 2 hours. I remember
Oh, yeah.
thinking I want to
Okay.
stay awake, and then I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I wanted to have a little experience for a little,
You want me to tell him what you said?
yeah. But there's a little being I wanted to come and touch my head and go, Rob, head warm, nice.
No. Right. And he should have said, don't be afraid. No. So listen.
Be very afraid. No, I'm kidding.
All right. So you called me up 12 hours later. You'd been out. You'd been knocked out for like 12 hours.
I think you called me right afterwards first.
Okay. So I called you right after Kim
This
Jim's
is what
visit.
happened when, yeah.
And I said, you know what? Kim Jim said you opened your eyes, and the whole entourage just went whoosh right through the ceiling. And you should have felt the light, and you should have felt the movement of the whole room almost sort of slide through the ceiling. And what you said was, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to call them back. And then I spoke to you again, Rob, and you were speaking in tongues. You were going millions and millions, millions and millions behind millions and millions. These two little guys came into my room, and they held a rectangular metal box to my forehead, and everything got better. And then you started talking really fast, and you said, I got to go. I got a million projects to take care of. It was almost like within an hour, you were like back on your feet doing shit. And it was,
from my recollection, I don't remember this conversation at all, but I know that I had felt better, but I was still in a recovery of a deep sleep.
it took a while.
I'd like to get regressed to what that was, but
no, I've actually reached out to Barbara Lamb about this, and if we can get you to Nathan's, I could probably get her up there, and we'll stick you on the couch because you need it anyway.
Nathan and I have been talking about that one. I'm coming down between the 31st and the 5th, and
great.
Maybe we can arrange a meeting somewhere in Orange County or something where they don't have to come so far, and we can all
That'd be great.
But so anyway, so folks, so this for me, it definitely got me out of the bed. I had a slow recovery from this, but I definitely got better, whatever they did. And I have to take responsibility. If anyone's a chemist out there, you can know that formula. Contact me through my website or thepromiserevealed@gmail.com. I need that formula. I'm going to put it on my back. They gave me some other directions, which I'm following. And they mentioned that if I do is it a 45-day raw food fast, a lot of my issues.
No, raw vegetables.
So I'm going for that starting in April after I finish Vegas show, and I'm going
Well, I
to
tell you what, my son William and I actually started it as soon as Kim Jim suggested it for you, and we've been on this for like 7 days now, and it sucks. But I actually am feeling really, really great, like killer, like super energy, man.
I'll ask you later. I have some questions about that. So I wanted to give that with my personal experience, and also, um, I don't know. You sent me a picture. They showed up outside my door here, the little beings, and he's got some pictures that they're kind of transparent, and they have the big heads, and they have various sizes, some small and some big. And before my conference, I was interviewing Vivian Chavez, and he noticed them behind me in the screenshot. And that's because of his connection. Anyone else who was watching that video wouldn't, but he screenshotted some of the videos, and they're pretty amazing. And maybe he'll share them at the conference, but he's going to have an amazing presentation. So to recap, and I'm going to let you take off from where we were at, we were basically talking about your previous contacts, and I'm going to ask you to go to our previous show with David, and then I'm going to let him take off what happened on his journey, and I'm going to, when he tells me, I'm going to start playing some of the art that he's done and some images that have come from this information. And at the end, our little what do you call it, the special that we're going to do is we're going to release the pictures of a being named L that came into his room, and the crystal he was holding, and some stuff here. So David has a unique experience that the pictures inside the ships are coming out, and he has a lot of knowledge and stuff. So we're sharing with you this is a more scientific, evidentiary based thing that is part of his awakening art. So where we were at was he was the only being awake. He had met Kim Jim, and then he met a girl named
Erom,
and then he went
Ram, RAM.
Erom, okay, and then he was escorted to a being who was kind of the captain of a ship named Weimer.
He was more like, no, the captain were actually a couple of sort of praying mantis controllers in the center. They were running the ship. I don't think the ship had that kind of hierarchy. Weimer was my special deck guide, and he was very tall. He was yellow. He had small eyes. He was very kind. He was a master mathematician and scientist, but he was put in charge of me for my trip. In the last interview we did, I mentioned there were other humans. They were asleep. We were in these fabulous green chairs that were tubular, that were not attached to the floor, but they looked like lawn chairs. And they were sort of at a 80-degree incline, 70-degree incline. Weimer folded me into this chair in front of this big, huge window. And he said, just hold your arms like this, sort of like a mummy. And as he folded me into this green chair, and I think I sent you a picture of it, and if I didn't, I'll pull it out and show it to you.
Okay.
And I was floating within this sort of green tubular cage, but it was like glowing green. It didn't look like green metal pipes, but they were like green glowing tubes. And I'm sitting in this interesting armature, and I could breathe really fine. My bottom's not touching the seat. My feet aren't touching. I'm not touching the chair, and yet I'm within it. And the chair is not connected to the floor, yet it's stationary in front of the window.
Amazing.
And so he folded this armature around me, and he put his hand on the side of my face, and he goes, "This is the part everyone likes the most." And the ship pulled up away from Earth, and I could see South America and Martinique and the Atlantic. And we went like this, and it was a huge, 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 massive disc ship. And we joined a fleet. There must have been 50 of them. They were super massive ships, and we were the fifth one in the back. We were up front on the right side of this V-shaped formation.
Armada, yeah.
Of an armada, these massive ships. And he said, "Just watch the window." And it was amazing because the space in the distance, you can see it in the window, it split the window from left to right. And the window was a huge, thick piece of crystal, and it was embedded into the ship. It was a proper window. This wasn't a screen like you'd see on Starship Enterprise. This was a window in the craft. and there was windows all around the peripheral center edge of this big disc. And he said, just watch. And the space cracked, and there was like this electrical fissure that was going like crackling in a thin line. And as we got closer and closer to it, it became white and bright white blue. And there was these sparkly silver balls and dark blue and light blue electric balls flying away from it. And we went into this fissure. Well, space, because of this fissure, do you know what? Remember those old fashioned dryers when you would like roll the wet clothes through a rolling pin thing, and you would turn the crank?
Oh, yeah.
And it would squeeze it closed, and one wheel rolls one way and the other rolls the other. Well, it was like that watching space around our solar system. All of a sudden, the top part of the window started rolling up, and the bottom part of the window started rolling down, and we went through this ribbon. And it was all of us doing this, all the ships doing this through this huge ribbon through space. And oh my God, he's talking to me and he's giving me all of this information. You see, what Kim Jim had done when he had removed all the emotional trauma from me is that he had done something to me electrochemically. The little guys that took me to the tent, my friend that wakes me up, the one that touched his forehead to mine, he gave me the etiquette protocol to meet Kim Jim. Kim Jim gave me the etiquette protocol to get on this ship. That's the crack, and those are our ships.
Right. So I'm just bringing this up. This is the image he was.
That's great, Rob.
He was just talking about it. So to give you a recap, folks, he was taken up in 2017 as a representative in the incarnation on the Earth, a starseed, to give evidence.
Oh yes, I didn't switch.
There were, how many other people were on board your ship? Do you think these other ships were picking up people, or were they there as a protection?
Yeah. Oh no, I remember other humans on Broccoli, but they were awoken during the landing ceremony. When everybody landed, they were being woken up. The ones that weren't asleep were there was lots of other extraterrestrials. There was like couples. I mean, like they were
asleep.
Cute. There was
asleep?
No, awake.
Oh, okay.
And they were sitting in chairs watching the window. This was like a 4 to 8 hour trip.
It was like a tourist vacation for some of them. We're going to go pick up some people.
It's funny you should say that, but it's not too far from the truth.
Right.
And so we're in the ship, and Weimer is starting to download all of this information about rotational and angular kinematics, the coefficient of rotational velocity. He's given me the 5 kinematic equations, and he's given me Maxwell's theory of electromagnetism and Euler's formula and quaternion mathematics and all this stuff. And he had to give me that in order to have some sort of recourse with me, because I guess I was pretty stupid.
Well, when you're talking with these physics, they had to reawaken your soul memories.
But he put it all in my head in order to have any kind of enlightening conversation with me, which I thought about, much later, and thought that was kind of funny. But so he was allowing me to ask questions. And so I asked him about what.
While you're doing this, could you show the picture of Weimer that you drew?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't email it to you.
I didn't get that picture. So you go ahead, hold it up to the camera. I'll tell you where, because I didn't get that.
Yeah, Weimer's really cool. He was so nice.
David is an artist too, folks. So he's doing a pretty good job. He's like, he's got that math mind. And, of course, obviously, folks, when you think about a contact, why not just contact a baker? A winemaker, a baker, a lion tamer.
There we go.
A police. He has a lot of different positions here. So throughout his life, but he's is not officially an artist, but he's got some really good images that he's drawn here. We're going to show you some amazing.
This is what the ships looked like. Pretty stereotypical, but they were massive. They were about the size of 3 or 4 aircraft carrier. They were huge. And the windows were huge. They were 20, 30 feet long and 20 feet high. Hang on, here we go. So what I did was I drew a triptych. And I don't know if you could see this, but this is Kim Jim. When we got to the midships deck, I'm stepping off the blue platform and he's holding my hand. And that's Kim Jim. He's a little fellow, and he says, I love you very much, and I'll see you in 2 years. And he gave me to Erom, who's this beautiful girl with these reticulated giraffe markings. And she was really very beautiful. She just exuded love. And she said, don't look at the controllers. And she said, they don't really like your species. And those are the two grasshopper-like beings that were touching these two big obelisks with buttons and controls all over them. And they had beautiful gemstone colored dresses, or like these gowns with gemstones stitched in them. But they were obviously very insectoid. And they were surrounded by those big black polished slabs. And if you look in the back, it's kind of pale, but there's some windows you can see in the distance. And then we keep walking, and then this is Weimer.
First of all, note to Kim Jim or Elam, don't look at the beings. Don't tell people on Earth not to look at the beings. That's the first place they're going to look.
You know, no, I took it very seriously. Erom was very sweet. But so those are the chairs, and that's Weimer sort of holding his hand up, greeting me. And if you look on his chest, that is the only writing I remember seeing. And I was able to remember it. And my friend Baz in West Macedonia and Greece deciphered it. But we'll get to that in the future. So and those are the green chairs in front of the windows. So I'll just close that up.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of this stuff, folks. So it's really detailed. You know, he doesn't have a fertile imagination because we have photographic evidence.
So there's the black Sarsens in the center of the ship. Here's the windows. Here's the hologram of the Earth and the Moon above the controllers. And that's Weimer folding me into that chair.
I love how your facial expressions in these is kind of showing you're like kind of dazed and like, what the fuck's going on?
Oh, and you know what, though? I felt like, I have to tell you, the whole time I felt like I was some little 4-year-old that was being cared for. Honestly, I felt like these were my new parents and I was their pet. And they really liked me a lot. And that's the way I felt. I know that it was a different relationship than that, but they were really very kind and loving.
So to backtrack, folks, he was picked up in 2017. They picked him out of his bed. 4 attendants came, helped him up. They took him out, and I guess he was scrubbed and prepared to go on board the ship. And we talked about a little bit about the journey and other stuff, and we're continuing here. Now you've met Weimer. So
right now, Weimer is this enigmatic, tall being. And you know, at the very beginning, when my friend who wakes me up told me that thoughts were things, and that everyone around me can see my thoughts like a picture on top of my head that just sits there. Every time you change your mind, it's a different picture. So they can just see that, and they know if you're thinking rubbish or not. And you know, it's very true that they can see right through us, and we have to be very conscientious of the thoughts that we keep at all times, because you never know when they're going to come and visit. So Weimer, when I first met him, I was reminded a little bit of Vincent Price, because he had that kind of goofy, sort of amazing demeanor. And he said, I don't know who Vincent Price is, but my name is Weimer, and you know,
I don't know who Vincent Price is.
Yeah, he goes, my name is Weimer. I am your deck guide, and I will be with you for the entire trip. You know, please come over to the window. And so it was just then that I remembered, oh Christ, you know, they can see the picture of Vincent Price above my head because I'm thinking of Vincent Price. And he was like that. He sort of had that personality, that charming, bubbling, silly personality. So Weimer talked at length about speed and about what protects the ship, and he gave me a lot of technical information and stuff that revealed itself to me post the trip, post my return. And it's funny how those pieces of information they give us, whether they transfer it to us through a light flash or through some form of chemical, it's released later, and you have a higher sort of cognition about the experience. So Weimer got me out of my chair when we landed. And did you get a picture of the ships pulling?
Yeah, I have that. I'm going to share that, but let's share this other one that you gave me, may as well, because this is you're in this ribbon of this portal traveling all the way to the Taurus cloud, folks. It's the Pleiadians. They have a different. They can go there in about 7 minutes at certain times of the
Oh no, this was like a 4 to 8 hour trip. That's it. Now, it's really important for you to understand this. The space that we went into was 100,000% different than Earth space. Space around our planet is black, but that little blue-green sphere in the bottom center of the page that the ships are bending down towards, that sat in an amazing celestial cosmology of beautiful magentas and violets and pinks and lots of sparkly stars and gold. That big yellow blob on the upper left corner, that's Aldebaran, the star. And that orange one, believe it or not, okay, I know we haven't found an orange dwarf. They talk about red dwarfs and brown dwarfs.
They call it a protostar. The Venusians said
Weimer said it's the equivalent of an orange dwarf. And I got back, to Earth and I looked it up and there was no such thing. Okay, do you see that black disc on the right?
Yeah, that's a black hole, right?
It's a manufactured black hole.
There you go.
And that's when they slow down.
Yeah,
so the black hole sits like this. The ships are coming in at 78,000 kilometers a second.
Mm-hmm.
The ships come in, and as soon as they hit the peripheral ring of that black hole, it slows them right down.
I think the mantis beings are the ones that are actually opening.
Amazing. And it's stationary. It's a geosynchronous stationary extraterrestrial created black hole, and they use it to stop because of the gravitation. It's set up, the size of it and where it's positioned won't cause any harm to any of the celestial bodies in that system. It's manufactured to produce a specific amount of gravitons to grab and arrest the ships as they come in. It was so fascinating. So that's a manufactured black hole, and that's how they slow the ships down, stop them. And then they all sort of took a left turn and they glided around the planet until they landed one after the other. It was wonderful. But I fell off the ramp and I cracked my skull open. And
okay, hold on. Let me get that. I got that image. So let me play. When you get your computer, you can do.
Oh, it played holy hell, because I heard from Kim Jim that Weimer actually got in sort of trouble. He's not doing what he used to do. Okay, so that's Broccoli. And it has terracotta colored soil, really pretty blue sky, and all the trees look like broccoli. And so I was thinking, okay, that's the broccoli planet. And Kim Jim came back 2 years later and said, please, David, it's Broccoli. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was the broccoli planet. Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I never saw Weimer again. But one of the most amazing things was all of the species during disembarkation were holding hands. And it was really loving. And there was different species. There was fathers and daughters. There was wed couples. There was ones that are mated for wildlife. There's ones that are mated part-time. But they're couples in unity, and they're all arriving at this planet for a reason.
They're coming for this big council. We're going to discuss the Earth. Now, I have a question while you fell off the plant.
And that's me falling off the ramp, and Weimer standing there, the little yellow guy letting go of my hand.
He wasn't supposed to, but I'm kind of curious. Do you think, was it because is it another dimension? Is it another gravity that kind of messed you up, or what?
Not at all. In fact, do you remember me telling you that when I got on Kim Jim's ship, I had really bad pins and needles and he kind of ignored it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, by the time I got out of that chair, my legs felt like noodles. All right. And it was something that was because of the electromagnetism of the ship. It was my first space flight. And I tell you what, I felt like I was on an electromagnetic hot seat, because when I stood back up, I couldn't feel my feet and my legs were like noodles. And I went right off the edge of that thing. And,
he felt 50 feet landing on his head.
Right there.
So take us from there. I'm going to pull up the next pictures.
Well, you're going to love this. I have a beautiful surgical 4-inch suture in my cranium that I had a radiologist photograph. And he became so enraged when I told him that I had never had cranial surgery that he wouldn't let me have my x-ray. So I petitioned the hospital, and I've got a new GP who is giving me an MRI, and we're going to look at the stitching in my skull. But the radiologist said it was the most beautiful work he had ever seen. And I have a big 4-inch dent in the top of my cranium. So what had happened is I punched my skull into my brain, and it had damaged the whole right hemisphere of my higher cognitive centers and my memory lobes. And so I was taken to who was called a Joita doctor, and it's
Once
phonetic. It's
again, give us to that. It sounds like a Star Trek term. What is it?
he's called a Joita, and it's Jowetaur. And he's really wonderful little guy. His whole species come from a moon that they harvested and turned into ships. They made like 12 gigantic stone cylinders and left their planet, and they spread across the universe. They specialize in cerebral and neural reformatting. And so he is one of the top doctors on Broccoli. And as soon as there's an accident with any extraterrestrial species, the Joita doctor is there, because they have a device called a curla. And the curla gets strapped onto your forehead, and they push a button, and all of a sudden your brain mass starts growing back. I'll tell you exactly how they fixed my memories. It was really amazing.
So there's a close up.
Yeah, that's me going ass over tea kettle. What an idiot.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to get you to the hospital room. Go ahead and share what was happening. I guess what your thoughts were, but I guess you didn't have any thoughts. You were passed out, and you were on the.
I was passed out for the most part. It was the same experience where I was only cognizant of this little. That's him. He's so beautiful. There was this little man, and he put this. In his hand is a like a springy gold strap with an oblong shaped hollow gold box with a sunburst on it. And I remember him putting that around my head. That's a bowl full of bloody towels. That's some fresh drinking water for me. And that's my face all smashed in. And while I'm talking to him, my face is coming back out. My brain has been regrown, and he's waking me up. It only took moments for him to fix my brain, because that's how simple we are.
Yeah, I'm
not kidding you.
Let's also say how amazing
our brain.
is.
Listen, Rob, our brain is comprised of fatty lipids, choline, and lecithin, and very little else. It's like 3 different biogelatines with a serious series of synaptic electrical currents that they know how to put in line. That's the curla in his hand. And when he pushed the button on the starburst on the curla, all these little lights that were like, they looked like Sanskrit, but each tiny little Sanskrit symbol on the side of the curla box was a different gemstone color, and it blinked and flashed. And what he did was he took all of the memories stored in my left hemisphere that were undamaged, flipped them around, turned them upside right and backwards, and relaminated them to the new brain that he grew. And it was like a deck of cards coming together. So I have every memory that I ever had, so crystal clear I can remember when I was 6 months old. But what
I guess so that was a benefit of getting dropped on your head. I have to comment. I love your face. It looks like you had a night of Coke, Jack Daniels, and
I was beat to shit. I was beat to shit. And I tell you what, the guy was so wonderful, but he was very sad for me. He said, David, all those feelings that you had from your childhood are gone. And he said, all the electrochemical emotions that you have from your memories are gone. We can't put those there.
Can't restore the emotional aspect of it.
Yeah, he said the feelings, we can't reproduce the chemical feelings. All we could do is give you your memories back, but you won't have any feeling attributed to them. So I sort of feel like an epileptic who's been through the split brain procedure. I remember my mom when I was little, but I just don't have any feelings towards her. And it's awful.
Well, you love your mom, so.
Of course I love my mom, but I have to. But I just don't have that sort of like, oh, I remember my birthday when I was 7 and I felt so good. None of that stuff is there. It's all gone. All right, so that's me looking back at the Joita doctor's office. Everything was white. It all looked like it was made out of corian, like a single slab pour. All of the doors and the cupboard hinges were grown into the door and to the end of the cupboard. There
Right.
was no moving parts, screws, nuts, or bolts. And they were like bio hinges, and they just open up and close again. The doors were pitch black. You can't see through them, but there's a little dark blue electric line on the inside. And as soon as you pass your face through the door, you can see the outside. As soon as you pull it back in, you can't see the outside. They have this weird shielding device that doesn't let anything in, but you can go ahead and go right out.
Yeah, it's kind of like Star Trek. It's not like Star Trek where you hear the whoosh and the door opens.
Yeah. Do you remember the scene when Picard, it was one of the last ones when they're fighting the Borg, and he's showing that gal from Earth what the Earth looks like, and he opens that huge window?
Yeah.
It was like that, but you couldn't see through it. It was black until you put your head through it, and then you could see outside and you pull your head back in.
So to explain this picture, he actually turned his head a little bit farther than he normally could, but after a brain.
Yeah, I wasn't doing the Exorcist thing. That's my back. So my back is turned to the extraterrestrial because I'm turned away from him. All right, so my head's not spinning. So that's the back of the tunic. It's a hospital tunic, and it's the same damn one that they put me in when they picked me up from the bedroom. I mean, it only just covered my bits. And thank God there was no shame or morals there, because I would have felt like, pretty embarrassed that my winky was hanging out.
Half of them were naked from what I was told.
Totally. So it was like there's no shame, and it's okay because we're all creatures.
Are you going to talk about what you saw on the way out? I forgot that's the part you didn't want to talk about, or?
No, it's okay. At this point, it's a moot point. The U.S. government knows they're in deep shit, and so does the space program, and so does Russia. And if you want to,
what you saw when you came out.
Yeah, if you want to show it, go ahead. Because we're not using any names, but the government, Russia, France, Germany, and the United States are in deep shit. They know it. If you want to go ahead and the next stuff, I'll explain it.
Okay, if you have a picture of it, if you want to share that, I don't have that picture, but you can go ahead and share what you saw and reveal as much as you want on that.
All right.
So what happened, folks, is on the way out of the hospital, he observed something, and it's pretty fascinating. And
okay,
think Harry Potter.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. What those are top National Security Administration and Pentagon officials floating with gold bands around them, floating on these big black slabs in this room.
There was a pretty big being holding them too.
Yeah, he was really creepy. He was kind of like an octopus wearing a blood red tartan.
Let's see the picture again.
And he's picking, and if you see, he's picking him off of one of those blue light pads. And humans are tiny to him, and he's picking him up, and they're putting him on that slab with the waiting gold bands. And they're sitting there, and this is really disturbing. They're asleep, or it looks like they're half asleep, but you can hear them, and they're having nightmares, terrible nightmares. And these are really good-looking, chiseled, 65, 70-year-old professional military guys. I'm talking top guys. And I know what these guys are like. My uncle, Bill Horacek, was a full bird colonel at Fort Worth. He flew the fucking space shuttle. So I know what these military people are like. Well, these guys are on these slabs, and there's tears coming out of their closed eyes, and they're doing this. It was horrible. And I asked the little guy who had my hand, I said, "Are they being hurt?" And he said, "No." The doctor was diagnosing their treatment. And this is fascinating. You see the wand he's got in his hand?
Yeah, like Harry Potter.
He was touching this long...
Show that image again. Show the image. Come on. A little longer so we can see it. Go ahead. There you go.
He was touching this long, what looked like a clear rod to their foreheads.
Move it to your right a bit. There we
and
go.
as soon as he touched the wand to their forehead, the pain and the nightmare sounds stopped, and then you could see them sort of relax. And he'd take this wand and he'd fling it. And he'd hold the wand, but from the tip of it, this very strange, clear sinew would come out of these officers' foreheads, and it would splat against a wall like it was like a gooey mucus membrane. And it had little gold balls in it. And he'd take his wand, touch it to their head, and fling it. And this wall was this massive white, like alabaster panel that had thousands of these different arabesques scrawled into it. And the scroll work was perfect. It was like a perfect inch deep, perfect inch wide, and perfect angles. But they were beautiful. There were swirls and all these fabulous patterns. And it was just so exotic looking. Well, as soon as that mucus membrane would leave that tip of the wand and hit one of those lines in the wall, it would go, and it would go off into this big, beautiful, bright red or bright magenta, like neon light, and would follow the arabesque of whichever arabesque it landed into. And then the doctor had this little thing in his hand, and he would push some buttons and then walk back over the patient. And what I found out was that they were removing years and years and years of chemical abuse from the US government, years of emotional damage done to these poor men in the name of their country against their will and against their better judgment. And they were saving their souls. They were returning their humanity by removing the poison and removing the memories, because those men did not deserve to have those memories for what the fucking government did to them. It was horrific.
I hear the people at their homes right now applauding.
And it saved their souls. And then the little guy looked up at me and he said, David, when you get your Space Force organized, if there are any people that want to launch a rocket against us, our friends will keep that from happening. Because what they've done is it's almost like the Manchurian Candidate. But it isn't just America. They've done it with Russia. They've done it with France. They've done it with Germany. And there's so many officers in the higher echelons of super secret service that the US government does not know which ones are sleeper agents that are working for extraterrestrials. The benevolent species have already come in and removed the toxic poison from them, so that
they've been implanted by regressive hostile interlopers with an agenda towards
right.
EIM.
And all that's been removed. All of it's been removed so that when they're told in the future to do something against the Pleiadians, to do something against the Venusians, they're going to turn around and say, no, go get stuffed.
Good. So
yeah,
there you go, folks.
It was so painful to watch. It was heartbreaking because I thought these guys were being tortured, but it was just the opposite. And I had no idea the horrible things that the US government's done to animals and to humans in the name of profit
and control and power. Unfortunately,
it's horrendous.
They're
actually, and I was shown all of that stuff by the extraterrestrials as we marched through the room. They had to show me. Yeah. And it was part of the birthing process of trying to understand what my role is, because after I was
I don't know if you can hear me. You froze a little bit. I'm gonna just pause here for a minute till he comes back.
It's okay.
Okay, he's back, folks. He had frozen for a moment.
Yeah, and I tell you why, and everybody knows why, and we don't even have to say it.
Yeah, right.
So, right? So screw them. But so the governments don't know, the world governments don't know anymore. They've lost control of their own people. And the ones that are in key positions that were brainwashed by these evil bastards that run our countries have been lost to them. And they're part of the greater program of the awakening of humanity. And everything will truly be okay.
That's really great news. So I'm really stoked and excited to hear that. I'm going to, I got a new share, kind of was where you were talking about before. And I'm going to share this other, because David's a pretty good artist. So in Raymond Keller's book, Cosmic Ray's Excellent Adventure, he goes back to about 17.5 million years on Venus when it was a tropical planet, very lush. And they actually had broccolis on their planet too. Raymond said it looked like a giant broccoli, but David did a pretty good thing. He spelled it wrong here. This is before he told him it's called broccoli with a K,
Correct.
Brokkali.
Li.
So
Yeah.
these are trees, and I guess you could probably jump up and eat them.
Well, it was the trunks of them were sort of translucent, and you could look down through. These trees were huge. They were like 150, 250, 300 feet high, and these gorgeous forests, and they do nothing but produce natural oxygen. And you could look down and see the dappled sunlight coming through the tops, and it made the little shadows past all the trunks of the trees look purple and lavender. It was so beautiful.
Gorgeous. And tell us about the mathematic signature. This is kind of from the.
Well, that was one of my first symbol downloads, and that symbol represents the picture in the planet. That is the equivalent of their language to describe the planet. And I guess if you're an extraterrestrial, that's what you're looking for when you want to find broccoli. They embedded a lot of really interesting stuff like that in my head. I try not to do automatic writing because it really makes you exhausted afterwards. But they showed me a maths program that they use to accelerate teaching their young ones higher physics. And they've showed me how it works, and they've given it to me. And so what I'll be doing when I come to see you in Shasta is I will show you a highly developed form of new physics, and it's how they teach their children physics. So that the equivalent for us would be if you followed their program in mathematics, you'd get your PhD by the time you're out of high school, because there's no time like the present. And what we do is use a chalkboard, and it's a big waste of time. So I can take a formula that's some 1,500 characters, mu naught epsilon naught 1 over r squared del dot hat, all that stuff that you have to remember when you're filling out a huge equation, and change that into maybe 25 to 30 symbols. And those symbols can be decollapsed to show you the root origin, but those symbols now represent the function. So you don't have to sit there and memorize all that crap, just show them the formula and the function. And that's one of the problems with Terran physics, is that we force everyone that learns physics to remember every little thing from their power series, and it's a big waste of time.
So do you want to share the pictures of the ships, the Orion stuff you shared, or
which ones have you got?
oh
yeah.
Okay, so
see, that's L. Yeah. Okay, so
no, this one
that
here.
picture. Okay, so that is Kim Jim's ship over my house, and this is last November when you and I were having some communications difficulties via the internet.
Yeah.
And then I sent you hello. Then I sent you there we go. Then I sent you the JPEG proof, the other part to show that it was a photograph and not some hocus pocus. So that's over my house at the beach.
This
and
is like a door into the ship or something amazing, right?
Yeah, well, he's directly over my house. And Kim Jim said, come outside, David, and take a picture. So I got 2 or 3 really good photographs. And those are his landing lights. He's got one on either side of the saucer. He's about a mile above our house. So that'll give you an indication about how big the ship is. And he said that this photograph would be important for you and important for your audience to see, because we can't just keep going, oh, yeah, there's something in the sky and it could be a ship. Oh, yeah, there's another pretty picture. So this is why I'm showing you photographs of extraterrestrials and inside their ship, because it's time. It's time for everybody to come together and link arms and get rid of the rest of the bastards that are screwing us over. The time is now.
Right, absolutely. So I'm gonna I'll give a little preview here, folks, for you. So I'm just this is a picture of Tom Hanks, who's probably dead now, but he was actually he's a Rockefeller. So this is a picture. He became a Disney and an actor about that age. I'm going to do that at a later point in time, but that's up there. Let's get back to our amazing revelation here. So I'm going to start with these one by one, and we'll share these here. I'm going to stop share there, and I'm going to go to new share, and we'll get on this image directly. Okay, so that's the image a little better because I'm improving my screen share here. I generally like to have these in PowerPoints, but
that's excellent. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have that ability on my side. I work with.
Okay, it's okay. We're gonna redo it. So I'm gonna.
The next time we do this, I'll have a proper laptop and we'll do a PowerPoint presentation. It'll be
Yeah,
much
no
easier.
biggie, no biggie. We're gonna handle this. So I'm just gonna pull up the image again, and the next image that you gave me was this. Wait, yeah, no, okay. So I guess I'm gonna go. I'll start with the next image then,
Go for it.
which is the one up there, and this is an exciting image for people to see here. I'm gonna go share screen, and it's this one. And that image that you're seeing there, why don't you explain, or you want me to go from the top down on those images probably, huh? Maybe switch it?
Well, it says Robert Potter has started screen sharing. There it is.
Okay,
Oh,
okay, let me go to the top and open this one instead.
okay.
Okay, yeah, this is, yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing. I'll do it from the top down, and we'll do a share screen here. And why don't you go ahead and share this one, and you're gonna guide me where to
Okay.
go. I'm gonna
Okay.
zoom
So,
into where you told me previously and see what we can see.
right. So that's L ship. Now just stop right there. Now take your cursor and bring it. There you go. That big, huge, dark triangle right there, my friend. You nailed it. So I was, like I said in the last time we talked, when you're doing something important, but all of a sudden you feel like you got to drop what you're doing and go outside. That's L's ship. Now, this is a super massive triangle. Super massive meaning if you look at these stormy skies, you can tell those are far above cumulonimbus clouds. This is L entering the lower upper atmosphere. So this is around the ionosphere.
We should clarify, when you took this image picture, they were telling you where. You couldn't see it. You didn't know where it was, right?
No. There's something like that only comes out later after you examine the photo. They always tell me which direction, what sort of angle, and how many pictures to take. And then they tell me there, you've got the picture and then you'll see it later. So beautiful ship. L is Andromedan. He's from the center of the Andromedan galaxy.
I went a little too fast here. I forgot. We got to finish. Let's take us. Sorry, folks. My fault. I'm kind of guiding it, but David and I are new here. So David gets off out of the hospital.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to go to the...
Yeah, let's go back and finish
Okay.
up the journey and what you did there, and show the images that you drew of the stadium and what happened. So you're coming out of triage in an emergency. You see these guys. Now you're being taken by that one being that had you turned around, and you said he kind of had an attitude. So take us from there, and I'll shut up, and you share the whole, what you shared with them and
Right.
position.
Okay.
Why you were brought there.
The reason I was brought to Broccoli was because I have a very interesting, that's not my picture, but I'll take it. That's an angel.
When you're ready, you share your picture of the stadium. I don't have.
Oh, you don't have it?
No, so you share whatever you want after that, because I don't have those.
All right.
You have to talk.
Right. So this is a super massive stadium that holds about 10,000 people or extraterrestrial. And if you look closely, you can actually see them sort of milling about, waiting for all of the people to get seated. And there were thousands and thousands of different extraterrestrial species here. And I was being led away from that one room. And I believe there's a white path in the picture. So there's the room where the NSA officers were having their deprogramming. And I walked along that long path. And this path by my fingers is the one that goes to the doctor's office. This long path goes to the auditorium. And so just on the other side of that sphere is a giant tower. And it's in the shape of a curve, because on the other side of it were hundreds of massive screens. And these screens were probably 75 feet long and 55 feet tall. And there was a lot of them. There was about 100 of them. And they led me to a plinth that raised up out of the walk area. and I'm standing at the bottom. It's like kind of like looking at, Wrigley Field from the pitcher's mound, where you've got all the seats just like this, or like, you're in a big stadium. Well, I'm standing on this oval, and it raises up, and it comes up about 100 feet, and it has a railing, and I'm standing there with my hands on the railing going straight up in the air until I'm eye level with 700 or 800 delegates directly across from me, about 50 meters. But just above us are these fabulously huge panels, and I could hear a ping. It would go bing.
Show the picture of the pedestal and then the screens while you're doing it.
Right. And then I'd look, and there'd be a question, and they would ask me a question about Earth. And my mom raised lions for 30 years, and she knew Joy and George Adams, and she knew Jane Goodall and all those wonderful people. So I was always, my worldview was always pro animal, pro Mother Nature. So there I am standing on this plinth, and every time they send me a psychic ping, I answer a question by visually thinking it. And my answer is flashed immediately of all the different aspects that could exist in the answer onto that giant screen. And so that covers everything. I mean, I was being asked questions about humanity, abortions, drug use, toxic waste, dolphins being slaughtered, sharks being killed, polar bears losing their environment, petroleum, strip malls.
Go a little slower with the movement. Go a little slower and show us the bottom.
So
yeah, slowly.
And then there was extraterrestrials, and typical, just like human beings. They're like, that's not their planet. They're not allowed to do that. And there was a girl there, I remember feeling her thoughts, saying, Father, how can they do this? And there was a very typical response of, it's not their planet. They've lost control. They no longer remember who they are. And that was a big theme, was they don't remember who they are. And so they passed judgment on us, guys. I'm sorry to say. It's not necessarily bad, but they passed
judgment. Show the
reactions,
if you could, because you're moving. This is why a screen share is better. But if you could show, go the other side. I want to see the edge and show those reactions. And now you have to talk.
Right. So can you see that?
Mm-hmm. See, if I talk, it takes off the screen. So go ahead.
Okay. So the reactions are pretty typical, but they have passed judgment on humans. And I wasn't alone. There were other humans there that had very, very damning information about our behavior as a species on this planet. You see, I was told that the Earth was a magical water world where special species from dying star systems were placed so that they could live forever. And our species that was developed on this planet, we are a magical water world. And all of the species that fly past our planet stop to get water. They love sitting next to waterfalls and smelling flowers and watching baby animals. But now all of our rivers are polluted with chromium. And there's a plastic patch in the South Pacific that's twice the size of Texas. We're wrecking everything on an unbelievable scale. And they're done with us. So, Ascension is not a members only club. But I can tell you right now that if you're not part of the solution, you're gone. Because there are going to be some cataclysmic solar events that wipe out parts of this planet. And if you don't get the message, you're going to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Well, so you better start loving the planet really hard and really quick.
Okay, so what else? I'll interject here a little bit. I'll keep my picture off, but so
what? I know that sounds a little negative, but it's true.
Okay. What I want to say also is I want to ask a question here, but in the fifth book of Raymond Keller, called Lady Columba. in her time travel experience, she went to, or not the time travel, when she's on the moon, she watched all these other species. And she said, they said, prepare, you're going to see a lot of different species here at this council meeting. It was a solar council meeting of various different races of beings that live in the solar system on the third dimension and fourth dimension. So she was prepared. She said she could see these different beings. Some were speaking in high pitches and they had translate, just like Star Trek or in the Star Wars. And she said, it says, but one thing was common. I could see the intelligence, the light of the creator, and the love and concern on every species.
Yep.
And
I totally understand that.
so she said she saw that. So one thing I want to mention here is you'll notice in the images that we didn't see many humans there. So this particular federation, from what David is kind of, they're in their own similar, I guess you'd call it genetic or genus species. Like they're slightly different. They all have these various looks, but within all of them, you can attest to this. They had a tremendous knowledge, a light, even though we would consider them weird or ugly. You could recognize the spirit of consciousness, right?
Oh yeah, no, and it's like I said earlier, it was remarkable. Everywhere they went, they held hands. There was this powerful emanation of love.
Did you notice any other humans other than the contingent that was bought there?
Oh no, there was 2 or 3, but not in the audience. They weren't scientists. There was 2 or 3 people that were speaking before me and after me. And really, I was up on the podium for a good hour, maybe an hour and a half. I remember being pretty exhausted. When I came down, 2 of the scientists came all the way down from very far away in the bleachers and came down to thank me personally. And
humans or
no extraterrestrials. One of them was about 12 feet, 13 feet tall. He had an enormous head. He had a big spike collar. His skin was bright green. He had tiny little black eyes and real long, pretty eyebrows. And there was another one next to him. He was about 8 foot. And he was in a white and gold robe, and he had a very smooth, large cranium, and he had golden, like fine golden hair. And he came up to me first, and he held my hands, and he says, "David, this ambassador, this scientific ambassador, came extra far distance to just come to listen to you." And then he walked up to me, and he was huge, Rob. He was like 12 and a half feet tall. And he nodded his head, and he held my hands, and he had a big wry smile on his face. And as soon as I heard his mind say thank you, I was out. I don't remember going back on the ship. I was deposited in our hallway, in our linen hallway, in front of my son's door with a loud bang and a bright flash of light. And I was wearing somebody else's clothes. And my son woke up, and he's like, "What happened to you?" And my hair was all sticky and sticking up. And I had 4 days growth. And, I always shave every night before I go to bed. So I was gone for 4 days. And I was only absent from here for 4 or 5 hours. And I took a 5-gallon jug of sparkless water from our kitchen. It was half empty. And I polished the whole thing off in one sitting in front of my kid. My son's eyes came out like snail stalks. And he goes, "What happened?" And I was speaking in tongues. I was just like you when you woke up. And I was drawing all these drawings and writing down all these different languages and all these planets and all the names and all the ships and all the technical stuff I learned. It was absolute madhouse,
So here we have an experience with us similar to a gray being, but not with the agenda of the interlopers or intruders, folks. So again, there are many different species, and I think it's good that David's coming up with this and sharing this amazing experience. I think you could tell by his enthusiasm, his dedication, his images. At this point, he doesn't have any agenda to make anything. He's still making pies, but there's bigger things in store for him. David, I think I'm gonna, if you want to share anything else from that experience, then we're going to go into your or if you want to, and I'll let you guide this, if you want to go into the next phase of, if you want to talk about L a little bit and what you're
Well,
going
have we
to,
been an hour, Rob? Has it been an hour?
I'm sure it has been, as far as I know. But
Yeah, it's like,
if you want
well,
to end,
why don't
yeah,
we end it? They
okay.
got a little picture of L by accident earlier, and it's a whole other conversation because we have to talk about the mathematics and the training. I like to talk about their children's toys. They showed me what it's like to be it's, well, they have children too, and they showed me their children's toys and how that the children develop special cerebral enhanced skills because of the toys that they're given when they're very small. And their children are so smart, and they already know, like, even at the age of, like, they're the size of a 3 or 4 year old, and they're really, really very, very smart, but they're also trained to have just as much compassion as their mothers and fathers. So you feel that same beautiful love coming off the little ones as you do off of mom and dad, and they're just like us. Rob, my number one message from my meeting was that this planet does not belong to us, and it's our egos and it's our evil lust for power, control, and greed that are wrecking everything. And they're taking the planet back if we don't step in the line, which is to protect Gaia and to love every little creature on this planet, rock, tree, stone, pond of water, or turtle. Everything has a right to exist, and we have to start thinking that. And if we think that I'm just going to be Billy Joe Bob and go get my 4x4 and kill some deer and stuff, well, he's gone, and he's the
Well,
same guy that raised his kids on Pepsi and ding dongs, right?
yeah, I'm going to say, um, as inhabitants here, we're stewards of this planet, and
Bingo.
and they're realizing now, because some of these species have heard what's going on, and they said, you know, the the person who said daddy, and the daddy said, look, daughter, they're not in control of the planet. uh, they didn't explain about the nanites and the mind control and everything that's gone on that's made it a slippery slope, but humanity has slowly acquiesced our our sovereignty to a system that has incrementally for thousands of years uh, been in play. And with the demons, because if I'm going to go biblical here, but the demons were cast into the earth. They came down into
Sure.
the earth and they intermarried. And when they were in the higher dimensions, they were light. And when they came down, they became dark. They're in the bottomless pit in the earth. And now the reapers are removing them. And now the
Yeah.
earth is returning to the sovereignty of humanity. You don't need to undo your straw man. You're already sovereign. You're already an individual, a free
Right.
being.
But, you're absolutely correct. And I hear that. I wouldn't worry about going biblical because, the epitome of the avatar of Christ is love. And I feel Christ's love. And I think that everybody believes in God in some way. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I remember my lessons from growing up with lions and my lessons from working with Kim Jim on Broccoli is that we need to suck it up and we need to start behaving and take responsibility for our actions. Humans need to stop talking about their rights and they need to start talking about their responsibilities to each other and to the planet. We need to do it now. And I think there's going to be a lot of similar feelings coming forward about this, that we're all this family. This is why we're here with you, Rob. I think that everybody feels similar in different ways. I know that I have some angst, perhaps a little anger, but I've seen some pretty horrible things in my life. And that's why, because I lived in Europe for 12 years, I was a diplomat, I did all kinds of stuff. And I've seen a lot of really terrible stuff. And that's why they took me, to extract that information and show everybody else. I think it's because it was so unbelievable.
I think one of the things that you mentioned here brings us back to where we started. And one of my missions is to bring people together. We have different groups of people following different contactees, and they're attacking other contactees. And they're attacking others about what they believe, and they're following this
that
person.
is such horseshit. There's
I just want to say that
unbelievable.
We're all here for the same message of love, hope, and peace.
Absolutely.
If there's differences, they have to do with that perception. And don't
right.
writing on the holier than thou.
if there's people that are behaving that way, it's because they're frightened and they know that they're not part of this process and they're not part of the group and they're lashing out. And we have to respond with forgiveness and love and patience.
Yeah.
And they can either join us or they just go away and stop being nasty, because we just don't need it. We're not here to be nasty to each other. This is all about love. And I think love is what really makes them run away when they start attacking each other. There is no authority. We cannot guide an experience such as this. We have to accept it, shepherd our own hearts, and they will continue to guide us, because we are going to do the right thing, Rob, and things will get better soon.
People deserve the truth, though, and there is a technology of the Akashic records of looking into the past and looking into the future. Very rarely
Sure.
granted to Earth people, but the reality is kind of all time is happening at once, and we can begin to start thinking about that. We're limited here, but we will, when we get calmed down, when we
Right.
stop creating wars, when police stop bashing heads, when greedy people start taking care of homeless people instead of getting a number 4 Ferrari and understanding the law of allowance and allegiance, we're going to have to change our relationship in our financial system. We're going to have to
Correct.
change our relationship in our companies and corporations and move into a more communal family relationship that has social responsibilities. And I'm not talking about a totalitarian communist system. I'm talking
No,
about an equal distribution of wealth. That's coming in the
sure.
future, those teachings. But right now,
There's
people are
plenty of
thinking,
money for everybody. There doesn't need to be any suffering or starvation. We don't need to have children living out of dumpsters. It's
money is
just
representative of people's energy, and right now it's been
right.
hijacked and coerced and stolen from constantly and
We're taking
unfairly
it back.
distributed. That's in my global restoration program part 2. I'm going to come up with that, and it's going to trigger a lot of people, but I think people just need to, let's be calm, let's come to Mount Shasta, hold hands, and let's connect with nature. You're going to find a
Absolutely.
lot of loving people there. It's kind of like if you go to San Francisco, you're going to find, if you go to
Gonna wear
Mount
a
Shasta, you're
flower,
going to find a lot of space cadets there, a lot of
right?
crazy people who believe in a universal space family or transformation on our planet.
Well, I know Raw, and he's a real amazing guy. I like Raw. And if he's coming to your thing, it should be pretty interesting. He's a lovely guy. He's very, very smart, and he's very sensitive, and he knows what's going on. He's got his finger on the pulse too. You've got a great lineup of speakers. I can't wait to see. So many of them are people that I admire. I've come to admire and respect since what happened to me, because it doesn't take long after you're a contactee to winnow through the BS and find out who's talking the truth and who's talking crap.
Yeah, there's some people who are making things up a little bit, but I just want to show you there's a couple other. I'm going to Las Vegas. It's going to be a MegaCon. Raymond and I will be there. Uh,
Wow, what a great picture! Was that when you were 30?
yeah, that was yeah, that was 2 years ago, and that's Raymond Keller. And then we have there's one in Mount Shasta here. That's not my conference, but 1st through 4th, the Living Truth Summit, a smaller gathering. This is a good video if you want to learn about that inner circle. So that's the website. I'm going to stop the share, but I wanted the people to see right now. It's a Promise Revealed UAT. Very
Right.
soon, the UAT and the promiserevealed.net both will take you here. We're going to be moving it up. So, David, why don't you sign us off with a wonderful, loving message from yourself and from the broccoli, and maybe give us a story. You're going to talk about the math. We're going to go into a little hint on what we're going to do on the next show. We're going to show you the being from Andromeda, and they don't all look alike, obviously, but share with us what you intend to share a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I just want to say it was indeed a pleasure to be back. I can't wait to see all of you in Shasta, but Rob, especially, I have to give you a heartfelt thanks, because we all carry within us a deep urgency. And I think we feel this urgency and we feel so impotent, and we're struggling and we're alone and we work our careers and we have our kids or we have whatever responsibilities we have, that a focal point like Shasta is going to be very powerful release for a lot of people. And it's an important mechanism for all of us to harmonize, talk about higher frequencies, talk about remaining positive, because it's that 1% of people that live a life of true love. We will change. everything that's happening. Everything will be okay. And this is part of the process. We're all waking up. I don't have any answers or keys. I'm just sharing what happened to me. I'm not special because I went on a spaceship. I just can't live a life of a lie. I've never lied. There's no point lying. I don't have anything. This doesn't, and believe me, if anything, this is going to make my life more difficult. But it's kind of got to the point where it's so powerful. The message is so powerful that everything that happened to me is that I have to just live that life now. I can't be who I used to be. And so even if it ruins my life in this lifetime because everyone laughs at me when I tell them I was on a flying saucer, I don't care. And it's just really got to come out. So I just want everyone to know that all of the contact that I have with Kim Jim, which is really continual, is that he loves us very much and that they love our species. They forgive us more than we are capable of forgiving each other. They understand and see through it all. And if we would just shepherd our hearts and remember that thoughts are things, that our thoughts carry us through our lives, and that they should always be filled with love, compassion, and forgiveness.
That's beautiful. And thank you, David, for sharing your information and coming from a real heartfelt space here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to do the show next time. And I know all of us are sending our heartfelt thanks to the people of Broccoli and the various confederations that have seen what's going on and are actually from that meeting in 2017. I think many things have been mobilized in order to help the innocent, misled humans truly become free so that we can make our changes here. Are we ready? Are we responsible? Let's be part of the solution. Let's not fight amongst each other. Let's gather together in like-minded associations and see if we can create new platforms. Let's not try to hold on to this old system of governance. Let's not have a president. Let's have councils of wise elders who have proven themselves in various aspects of society. And let's
get
bring our government down to a local level.
Absolutely.
So thank you, David. We're going to end the recording here. And folks, we'll be with you again probably pretty soon with Dave. We're going to wait till he gets his laptop. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And, he's going to be interviewed by a lot of people in the near future. I'm pretty sure I'm going to work on some of my contacts, Laura Eisenhower, I'm pretty sure, and quite a few of my other contactee friends are going to want to enjoy your information, David, and bring out something different that I'm unable to at this point. So thank you so much.
Laura is a very special soul, and she has a big heart, probably one of the biggest out there. So
yeah, I think she'll talk to you soon. All right, thank you, folks. Victory of the light. See you in Mount Shasta this summer.
God bless you.
Okay. Aloha.
Bye.